It's time for the LowcoSports Lowdown. Here are your hosts, Justin Jarrett, Wes Kerr, and Max Araj.
Hey, and we got another along for the ride. Marcus Walsh joining us tonight on a Sunday night special edition of the LowcoSports Lowdown. Justin Jarrett joined by Max Araj, Wes Kerr, and Marcus Walsh. Talking, of course, RBC Heritage came to a close today. Another fantastic Heritage week. It felt weird for me because I wasn't here until this afternoon when I got in just a little after the leaders had teed off and actually zonked out for a little while on the couch and woke up to watch the finish. Driving takes it out of me, man. The long drive from Daytona, I was exhausted. Plus, we got a lot in over the days in Daytona. Spent a lot of time doing fun stuff, riding go-karts, seeing the racetrack, which is incredible, and all kinds of other stuff. But nice to get away for a couple days, but sad to miss the Heritage. But you guys did not miss it. I know, Marcus, we were talking last night on the show, and you were out there yesterday. I'm sure you were tuned to the TV today, taking it all in. And then Max and Wes were out on the scene as Justin Thomas takes the Tartan jacket in a playoff against Andrew Novak, who just would not go away today. He played really well, had a chance to win it on the 72nd hole, 8-foot putt, and just a little bit. I don't know if passive is the right word, but just he didn't seem real confident in that stroke on that putt. Pressure was a lot in that moment, and JT with the veteran presence coming through. I got to be honest, I was kind of pulling for Novak to close it out and get his first win. But yeah, I think so too. Those South Carolina ties, definitely. You heard a lot of people rooting him on today, but you guys were on the scene, so tell me more about the color, fill in the edges for us of what happened out there in Harbour Town today.
Yeah, I mean, just once again, a fantastic tournament and just another in the line of some tremendous ones that we have had the past few years over at Harbour Town. And from the jump, he knew that this was going to come down to the wire, whether it was going to be somebody else who was going to be in the conversation down the stretch, because we saw a lot of people fall off. Early, you kind of had the notion that it wasn't going to be Siwoo Kim. He kind of struggled out of the gate. There were others that flirted with it, most notably guys like Maverick McNeely, even Daniel Berger and Cantley
came charging in,
but we couldn't quite find the momentum to catch up. And then we saw the undoings of both Scheffler and Harmon, both on that same 15th hole where they kind of went a little greedy, went for the green, tried to get there close there in two. Ended up hitting the water, and from there couldn't really catch up. But Andrew Novak deserves a lot of credit for how he performed. There were a couple of times where he could have wilted away, made a couple of huge saves early in that back nine, around 10, 11, and then throughout 14 as well. And then a huge birdie on 16 to tie it, which is not an easy hole to birdie at all. But he continued to stay steady. After a little rough stretch in that front nine where he had two bogeys, but you still able to make up for it with birdies on 2 and 5, and then on ninth as well. Just really a steady round of golf, especially late after a couple slip-ups early, where he just was able to stay around and put pressure on Thomas to close it out. And of course, as you mentioned, he had that opportunity himself, and it hurts to see yourself so close, because everyone knows how important that first PGA Tour win is, and you have that right in front of you with a makeable putt. It just felt like, even though I had hope for him when I was watching it from where I was on 18, it just felt like, as you mentioned, it was a bit too passive. The confidence just was not there when it left. When the ball made contact with the putter, it just didn't felt like it had that conviction.
Yeah, he didn't hit it with that same firm stroke he hit all those par save putts with. He was stroking it all day confidently.
That's it. Like, when you just look at all that comes with a victory, and sometimes it gets in your head because you're so close.
And even then JT was onions on the game winner.
Tommy Novak, Andrew Novak. Andrew Novak, I was names escaping me. Andrew Novak, he's still going home with $2.16 million.
Yeah,
So despite the slip up there, he's still going home with a multi-million-dollar paycheck,
right.
and that's
And
still a
he's going to
likely
get back
amount.
to this.
Not a
He's going
bad
to get back to
price.
this stage again. I mean,
Yep.
he was the one that was like third at Valero a couple weeks ago. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe
I
there was one tournament that he was
so.
close,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
like I'll
he's coming up. So what I found interesting, I examined different things watching the tournament from home and like having my phone in my hand and stuff like that than I normally would. And so one thing that I thought was really interesting was that Thomas is only a year older than Novak. He's 31, Novak is 30,
that's crazy.
but he's been pro 4 years longer. Had a much more direct route, playing at Alabama, winning a lot of big time amateur events and being prepared to go out and win professional events and win on tour and set himself up with status early and ride it, and all those things. And Novak's just a different path, right? A little bit tougher path. He played at Wofford, not Alabama. He was tested certainly there, but not on the same level. It took him a little longer to navigate his path into pro status, and he's just kind of just now, hitting his stride, despite just being a year younger than Thomas. So I thought that was interesting, just to kind of compare their paths
the
to this point,
trajectory
their
of the
journeys.
career.
But Novak
Yeah,
he's an impressive
I
player. I
was
mean, I
really
think he's going to win and more than once on tour. He's really
and the
good.
cool thing about Novak is that he has connections to this area. I mean, not directly, but
Yeah,
I was over at the media center, and there was someone who came all the way from Charleston who heard that Andrew Novak has a chance to win this thing, and he went to act at Magnet High School, and
right.
there was a lot of buzz generated,
Yeah,
not just around Hilton Head, but around the state from a guy that, and I think that draws a lot of real interest when you have someone from the
Oh,
state of
yeah.
for
South
sure.
Carolina
Oh
or
yeah,
Georgia, who has a chance to win this thing. And I think a lot of people bonded around the possibility of Andrew Novak winning this thing, and he was a putt away. It's just,
yeah,
it hurts to see him fall short, but at the end of the day, I mean, takes on a huge paycheck, and he puts
yeah.
himself in a really good position moving forward. I think he's going to be a guy to watch. I mean, especially when you do well in these elevated events, and you put yourself in a really good spot to continue to get these opportunities. And I feel like the trajectory is still a very different trajectory than Thomas, of course, but the
Right.
trajectory is still very high with what we could see with Andrew Novak in the future.
You make a
Yep.
great point with that, Wes, because of the fact that this is now definitely an elevated event. Just the
Yes.
parity that we see. And we talked about it. I talked about it pretty much exclusively the other day. The parity that we see, particularly with this tournament and some of those winners that I was talking about on Wednesday before round one even started, and some of those key headlines, and you see it again with Novak doing as well as he did. We could have seen a couple other guys like McNeely and a few
Yeah.
others really make
McNeely was
a
impressive. He came to
Yeah,
charge.
play today.
McNeely was
He
right
did.
there for a bit, but then he faded in the 12th. He doubled that hole.
Yeah, he had
But
a double
One
bogey, I
bad
think,
hole will
on the
do you in.
And
yeah,
that's
he
so
had
the
a
tough
double
part.
bogey.
it's
on the
wonderful to
nine.
see.
And there are a bunch of pitfalls on that back
There
nine. I
are.
mean, you really have to make sure you're not putting
Well, I mean,
yourself.
really, one
Yeah,
wayward tee shot on any hole at
yeah. I
Harbour
mean,
Town
that's the
can lead to
trouble.
a
That's the
double.
problem of this course, and what makes it so exciting is you got to hit those tee shots straight, because there is very little room for error. Because when you get behind the eight ball, or if you're driving your tee shots left or right, and you have to deal with trees and potentially the
Right.
wind,
Yeah.
it can be a mess. And
Well, and that's what guys always talk
I mean,
about.
yeah.
One of the things that guys love about this course, the like real golf geeks love about it, is that you have to be able to work the ball both ways. Like
Right.
a lot of guys have a natural cut or a natural draw, and that's the way they like to hit the ball all the time. And that doesn't really work here because, depending on where unless you can really place it where you want it in the fairway, because depending on where you are, even in the fairway, you may have to draw or cut around a tree, and you may have to hit a pretty significant draw or cut at times. And so that's why guys like Boo Weekley love playing here, because that was his game. he loved the craft, crafting different shots and stuff like that. And so guys like that love it here. JT's definitely got every shot in his bag. I mean, he's that kind of guy. But that's why people love the what's that?
Well, I mean, JT also has experience on this course. I mean, he played the Junior Heritage tournament on this course at Harbour Town years ago, and he's
a lot of these guys
Heritage
did.
But he explicitly mentioned that twice, both in the speech they gave, it was after this post game ceremony or the post round ceremony on the 18th green, and again in the press conference. So just goes to show you how important. Number one, how important what that tournament meant to him when he was a junior, but also how much he loved playing here and playing this course, and wanting to win. The big tournament here. So I think that it's a full circle kind of moment for Justin Thomas, someone who has played this tournament a couple times, but
because I mean there aren't all that many.
It's not just a victory, but it ends a drought that dates back to the 2022 PGA Championship. So like a 3-year
it had been a little while.
Yeah, I mean, a massive win for him. And he talked. We had a great press conference after and talked about just what the measures that he took to get back to the game that he knew he could play, and even just a couple days ago after the Masters in Augusta, how he just found a way to focus and get back to doing what he could potentially do and what we saw this week. And so it just really good to hear the inside kind of baseball of what it took for him to.
And he's got a new caddy that he was talking all week about. They were kind of just starting to get their groove together, so that's a good feeling when they get a dub early on. I got a few notes here from the PGA Tour notes package that we'll run through. It was the 17th playoff in RBC Heritage history, first since way back in 2023 when Matt Fitzpatrick outdueled Jordan Spieth.
By the way, just look at the run that we have had of past champions: Jordan Spieth, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Scotty Scheffler, and now Justin Thomas. I mean, what a 4-year run that is.
God.
Yeah, compared to the previous 4 years, doggy.
I mean, welcome to the signature event era. I really hope we keep having this tournament as a signature event for the foreseeable future.
They're clearly going to have to rotate them around at some point.
Yeah, but
I see no. Go ahead, Max.
Oh, I mean, we talked about it the other night. I guarantee you, when they came back from COVID, and obviously this, the Heritage was the second tournament back from the COVID hiatus. And a lot of the top golfers were there playing that tournament. And I bet you all of them were saying, man, this course is really fun. Why haven't we done this, as a bigger event, And I feel like when the time came around for, the PGA Tour decided to make signature events, I bet you they went and asked players, if there's a course you want to have as a signature event, I bet you a good number of them said, I would love to see Harbour Town and RBC Heritage be a signature event.
Well, I don't want to speculate too much about how that process works, because we simply do not know. There's so much we don't know about how that works. But because there's a lot of factors that go into that. But who needs a sponsor boost? The tour has to operate on the whole. We need it. I mean, we're up for sponsor renewal, so we'll have to check in with our Heritage people and see where we stand on that. But I know it's time. So that's always a big event, and we had a great week. Again, I say it every year, but that's because Steve Wilmot says it every year. He can't control the weather or the leaderboard. The weather was spectacular.
It was. The weather was as good this week as I think it's ever been since I've been here.
Just pitch perfect, and the leaderboard was tremendous as well. And Novak would have been a great story, but probably not as prestigious of a champion.
Yeah, I mean,
unless of course he goes on to greatness.
There's two sides of the coin. I mean,
big name.
You love to have the first time winners, and you love to have the local connections and that kind of story, but at the same time, to have another prestigious winner like Justin Thomas, that adds just another level of just notoriety. I mean, for like household names in a row, or at least for golf fans, 4 guys that you easily recognize. It's long past the days of guys like Leonard and Baddeley, and even guys like Kodara and Pan. It's just completely different.
Yeah,
I'll go.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll go back real quick to what you were saying, JJ, because a couple of minutes ago I was just going to mention his name in Steve Wilmot.
Yeah.
I've known Steve for a handful of years, doing as
Yeah.
much as I've done over the years with WHHI, working the tournament. Steve talks to a bunch of our reporters. I'm sure you guys have an in with him as well. And obviously, it's impossible for us to know, and it's probably very hard for him to know how
Yeah.
things are going to be looking,
Right.
2, 3, 4 years out down the line. But I'll say this: there are a few people that work harder at his
Oh my
craft
gosh.
to make a tournament spectacular the way he has worked as long as we've known him,
And by
working
the
with the
way,
RBC and working with the Heritage here at Hilton Head.
And
The
he
man
and
is
his
a
staff,
machine.
Yeah.
because that's the thing, is he
Yes.
is a hard worker, but that sets the tone for a tremendous staff that he has assembled.
And he's a great
that
leader that way too, because
he
he
is
delegates.
a tremendous leader, and he's just a great guy. I mean,
Yeah.
if you ever find somebody who has a bad word to say about Steve Wilmot, it'll be the first
That'd be a
person.
first.
It'd be the first person. I mean, he's just a great guy. I think of today, because it's Easter, I think of one of his favorite stories about how before he became a tournament director of a golf tournament, at one point he was a Easter bunny at a mall in New Jersey. That was one of his many gigs before he found his path. But we're so grateful that he's been here managing this tournament for as long as he has, which is longer than I've been here, which is 20
Yeah,
years.
I mean,
So
many
Yeah.
many
It's been a long
years.
time.
he's been at the helm for a long time, seen it through some rough patches, and led it to the greatest, the best place it's ever been,
Yeah,
by
and this
far.
is
So
yes.
I'm hopeful that they'll get RBC back, because they've been a tremendous sponsor. I think everybody would prefer for that relationship to continue, but certainly if it doesn't make sense for RBC anymore, I hope it makes sense for somebody, because there's a great opportunity here. I was going to say this earlier, when you're talking about the guys who have played the Junior Heritage here. That's one of the layers in kind of the mystique of this place. It's the longest running PGA Tour event on the same golf course. There's no other that's lasted as long as this one on the same golf course. There are other events that have been around longer, but they've moved from golf course to golf course.
Right.
So, and it's so iconic on TV. I mean, watching it on TV today,
Yeah.
this reminded me of,
It's nothing like it.
we talk a lot about the value of this broadcast, the CBS broadcast, and what that means for tourism here and stuff. But then you see it on TV, and you're like, oh yeah, like I can see people are booking vacations right now after flipping through and seeing the golf tournament. I get it. I totally get it.
Especially with the weather this week, man. With that weather this week,
Chamber
I
of
bet you
Commerce
they were
conditions
seeing that
couldn't
and saying,
ask for.
Oh
"Could use
yeah.
some of
As I
that."
said, it was absolutely gorgeous and 70-degree weather, no sign of rain anywhere, and I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful from start to finish. And that's what you hope you get every year. And unfortunately, that's impossible. You can't. You don't have divine powers to control those kinds of things, but it's
Right.
great to have it. Great to have it cooperate.
But there's also a reason it's played this week, and that's
Right.
because we got pretty
Actually-
good odds that we're gonna have a
Yes.
really nice week.
Yeah,
Yep.
Justin, that last comment that you put up
Yeah.
regarding the RBC chairman, I was there listening to him. It almost sounded as if they were talking. They're already in talks of a new contract.
Well,
because-
I mean, they've already been in negotiations.
They had to have been.
Well, no,
for
I know that
over the
but
past
it almost
year.
sounds like it. Well, from
They're
what I was
close.
listening to today during the speech, it almost sounds as if they're closing in on a deal already.
Yeah,
like,
I would
for,
think so. I
right.
mean, this is the week to do it. So if
Well,
it didn't get done,
the thing is, they were talking and they said we're looking forward to more RBC Heritages in the future. So it
Yeah.
almost sounds like they're really close to closing a deal for a new contract with RBC.
I think
don't know
I
if
think
that's
what
going to happen,
JJ's
but
I think what JJ's trying to say though is that this is the week definitely to get it done.
oh yeah,
Because
Yeah, like-
and going back to what Steve does, he doesn't stop. You know, he's planning ahead already for 2026.
Right.
Hey, he
Out
has
of
experience in doing
365
that.
days
Like,
out of the year, he probably works
It's
about
like you
360.
had, if you're the car salesman, you had the guy, you had the customer in your office all
Right.
week. And if he walked out of that office without feeling like you're making a deal, then it's not likely to happen. So
Right.
that's what I meant by, like, now is the time. If they weren't saying,
Yes.
yeah, we're looking forward to doing this again after the tournament, then that would have been a bad sign.
It's
and,
too late.
And Steve would have been calling a whole lot of people this week trying to get somebody on board. But it seems to me that the ship is sailing beautifully, and no one would want to upset that apple cart.
And because it's not just the RBC, we also have Boeing as a sponsor as well, and they've been great.
Do we still?
mm.
Are they still on?
Well, that they did
wondering
mention it was RBC Heritage by Boeing. In
good.
the
Well, they had the
ceremony.
flyover.
Okay,
And Boeing was still there.
I
so
had a
imagine,
crisis.
yeah.
I had
So
a
I imagine-
crisis all of a sudden yesterday where I was like, wait, is Boeing still sponsored? Like, for some reason, I had this moment
they
where
still are.
I thought,
Yeah,
did
they
I
had
forget about Boeing not being a sponsor anymore?
Yeah,
they did the
had big,
flyover.
yes,
They
they
did. It was
flyover
awesome.
happened on
They had
Saturday around 4
the
o'clock.
big Boeing, the
And
big
then
Boeing 787.
they
flying
mentioned
over the-
yes, was still presented by
Now, I
Boeing.
do
and they
wonder-
should have Boeing as a sponsor.
I do wonder whether Boeing is going to be able to continue that arrangement, because they've
and
hit some
I
hard
wondered the
times.
same thing because they've been dealing with a lot of financial struggles as of late.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if they were going to be able to continue. If they do, it's great.
But
I
that
think it's
was
been
kind
great
of a
to have.
stopgap measure anyway. I mean, that was no one's preference to have a presenting sponsor in addition to a title sponsor. That was they needed that to make the deal happen. So in a perfect world, we would go forward as the RBC Heritage, and not have a presenting sponsor, I think. But that requires RBC to want to foot the full bill.
Put more
The
money
business
forward,
of sports is complicated and kind of gross. Like, you don't want to wade too far into it unless you've got a good stomach, because it'll really sour a lot of things for you if you get too deep in the weeds on all that stuff. But Max, you had a couple of videos for us, and I'll shout out our presenting sponsor. Speaking of sponsors, Mickelson Law Firm, our presenting sponsor of the LowcoSports Lowdown, and our longtime sponsor, our oldest sponsor. They've been with us since the beginning. They're also presenting sponsor of our Hilton Head Christian Academy coverage and our official real estate closing attorney. Hilton Head Christian softball first-year program coming to the Ville tomorrow night. Should be fun. Somebody gets a dub. Should be competitive. Should be fun. But Mickelson Law Firm can help you with all your legal needs, and they are right in downtown Bluffton. We got a couple of clips from Max coming up here. Let's see. All right, Max.
I will say on the final putt, I did scream in the background because it was pretty cool.
You're not supposed to do that, buddy. You're.
I'm not.
Yeah,
you're trying to be a journalist.
I
you
was,
can't cheer.
I was excited in my mind, but yeah,
Although I have been known to let out a like. I would have said.
It was a clutch putt. I was just thankful that.
I was so happy for him. To be honest, I just kind of jumped.
There we go.
Sorry,
I was just thankful that the playoff didn't go back to 17, because I was stationed on 18 and I didn't want to have to book it all the way to 17 and give up my spot to have to watch it there. So I'm just glad somebody ended on 18 before it got to 17.
Yeah, exactly. That is always a concern when they do that. When they go back to 17, then it's a haul to get back there. Your best hope is just to get to 17 green at that point. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So much wheeling and dealing is done this week in all those houses on the fairways. Every one of those hospitality houses, there are deals being made there. And all those hospitality suites, it's a big business convention where they happen to have a golf tournament. But
I happen to even take care of a little business on Saturday as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, just with
made a
insurance
deal
stuff with. No, the deal's already been made, but just kind of finalizing some things.
There you go. I mean,
Yeah.
I always,
It's
I
always
be
done there.
talking. I always be talking
Hey,
to people out there.
That's
do
right.
business. Do business while you're having fun at the same time. There's no problem with that.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Golf
And
tournaments
then
are
Max
great fun.
also got us the video that you gotta get.
Well,
You gotta
I
get.
didn't get. I do have a video. That was the wrong video. I sent the wrong video. Sorry,
You
but that
sent
was
me the
during.
speech,
That was a
but we do
speech,
get to see JT and Tartan, so that's
which
good.
is so cool. I'm
Yeah.
so happy for him.
The list of
I said this. I said this yesterday. Even if he lost today, I said it yesterday. This was a tournament he definitely needed.
Yeah.
In terms of playing,
Yeah.
he struggled,
Yep.
especially last week at the Masters,
Yeah.
and really needed a good tournament. And not only did he have a good tournament, of course he won. But I said even if he didn't win, this is a tournament that I think with the way he played this week, regardless of winning, the way he played this week, I think it's going to get him back on the right track, and he's going to start picking up some wins again because he's starting to look like
Yeah.
the Justin Thomas
Yeah.
I
I
remember.
think you're
watching.
right. I think he had a little crisis of confidence for a little while. He didn't quite look like himself. But and even to yesterday and today a little bit, you could see he was kind of wearing it. He was a little nervous. It
Oh
looked
yeah,
like he didn't
I,
look totally at ease. But he
the
was
best
able
If
to
you
part.
don't win
weather
for
it.
a
And I
while, the
think
pressure can get to you.
and I think his experience really served him well down the stretch
Yeah,
versus Novak's
I think
inexperience. And
the best part of him winning was getting to celebrate, of course, with his wife, his dad,
yeah,
and of course
and a
his
little
newborn,
baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
little Molly Grace
Oh,
Thomas.
I love it
So
when there's a baby involved.
she is so adorable. She is absolutely adorable, and
Yeah, we got to see her
his
a
And
first
lot on
win,
TV.
when they don't
his first
recognize
win as a father.
like what has
You know,
happened when they're too
Yeah,
young, and then they find out when they're older the significance of
well,
that. I think
I mean, it's his first win as a father, and it reminds me when
indeed.
yeah,
Jordan Spieth won in
Yep.
2022.
yep,
I believe
Yep.
it
yep.
was his first
Yep.
win as a father as well.
Grant
So
Snedeker also won shortly after having his
yes,
first child.
Yeah.
I think there's something to it, and I wrote about it when Snedeker won. I think there's something to it. I think there's a maturity that comes, an emotional maturity that comes with having a child, and suddenly, whether you actually believed it or not, you always told yourself like there's something bigger than you or whatever. But all of a sudden,
right,
you're like, oh my God, there's something so much more important than me, and that provides some perspective and some emotional
right,
maturity
yeah,
that I think a lot of guys kind of find a breakthrough after that,
yeah,
because they
Yeah.
stop grinding so hard and focus on what matters, and kind of get a clearer view of things instead of losing the forest for the trees. So I think there's something to that. And I think JT is probably in a good
yeah,
place emotionally right now, and that probably helped him this week. And I think it's cool too that he called a penalty on himself that he probably could have gotten away with not calling yesterday on the second hole.
yeah,
And it came down to today that that could have cost him the tournament, but he was able to pull through and win it. So I always like those kind of little things too. To this
Well,
point about that Rayleigh said about the
Yes.
Heritage Classic Foundation. So
yes,
here's something that not everybody in our community gets, and that's okay, but we'll try to connect the dots. It does not matter what your opinion is of golf at all. You can think it's immoral for, environmental reasons or whatever. This event is critical to the health of our community because it
No
funds
question.
so many nonprofits, some of them for the whole year. And, others, it's just one of the buckets,
I
but
mean, it's not even just
our economy runs on this event. And the
right,
reason why the golf economy is what it is because of what we were talking about earlier. That everybody who watches golf every weekend during the season sees this place every year since they were a kid, and a bunch of them started vacationing here because of it, and others have come here just to play golf because of it. And all of that starts with this tournament, and all of it
and I think
really
yeah,
starts to erode without this tournament. I was just down in Daytona,
right,
and the race is the same thing there, right?
Yep.
But
oh,
I'll tell you
without
what,
it, yeah,
there's a lot. We got things are going a lot better here than they are in Daytona as far as like development
I
and
have no doubt about that.
things like that. I mean, I had a great time down there, but there's a lot of dilapidated stuff down on the ocean
And it
front. That
speaks
is
to,
an
once again,
opportunity.
the terrific job that Steve Wilma has done, but also
Yep.
want to shout out Mr. Jonathan Wright, who is
Oh.
just a phenom in what he does, and maintaining this course and making it look pristine like the best courses that you see on tour all year. Jonathan Wright and his crew do a spectacular job.
Amazing.
First class.
Yeah,
event.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the other person I want to shout out while we're doing it is, of course, Angela McSwain.
Yeah, my girl Angela
was absolutely amazing. The marketing and communications director for the RBC Heritage.
Yeah, she's tremendous.
She's
awesome.
fantastic.
One of my favorite people on the planet.
Yeah, I continue. I
and
can't
such a
wait
nice
to
person
continue.
too.
Yeah,
Very
I can't wait to
sweet.
continue working under her at future RBC Heritage events, because she is absolutely fantastic. I actually sent her a text on the way home thanking her for everything she does, and her and her staff for everything they do, because boy, without them, man, it'd be a madhouse in that media.
Well,
center.
especially your first one. You got to experience it for the first time this year. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
Yep.
There's a lot of times where you don't know, am I supposed to be here? Or,
Yeah,
it's a nervous thing. But I wish I had been able to be there to Sherpa you for your first one, but it is what it is.
You can help me out next year if you don't go to Daytona or anything like that.
Hey, when my wife says we're going on vacation, I go on vacation, because otherwise I would never.
Regardless of when it is.
I would never take
one.
one.
I said to myself when I was going to this was that I was going to take advantage of anything I can possibly do to better myself, as not only as a broadcaster and a sports talk show host, but also as an interviewer. And I think this is a great opportunity for me to improve on that. And I think I definitely did this week. Obviously, I did.
I was a 26-year-old kid covering my first one time too, and I was lost too. Thank God I had Jeff Kidd steering me. But I tried to.
I think when I like, because the flash media interviews after a round for golfers and stuff like that is so fast paced, so I had to get used to that. Of course, when asking, talking.
And a lot of those guys do it every week. They're there every week. They know those guys.
Some of them are literally traveling down to New Orleans tomorrow.
Right. So, I mean, my philosophy for the most part, unless I had an angle that I was writing on specifically that I needed to get, comments on, was just sit back and let those guys do their work and ask their questions. And they were going to uncover stuff that I wouldn't even have known about, because they knew these guys on a depth that I didn't. And then occasionally, it would bring up a follow-up that I could shoot out there or something, but I was terrified to ask questions for the first couple of years, because it was a different time too. Now, there was a lot more people in those interview rooms back in the day when newspapers were still cooking, and everybody would come down from the Masters, at least for the first few days. So you'd have like international journalists, a ton of them in there the first few days. You still do a little bit, especially with the Asian journalists. But there used to be, like, if Patty Harrington was playing in the Masters, there was this Irish guy who came down every year after the Masters, and he asked a bunch of questions that were clearly for specific stories for, like, his Irish Golf Times or whatever he worked for. And that was but there were big hitters too, that came in from all over the country, and that's just not something that happens as much anymore. We don't all get together at the same places.
And, like you said, some of these guys will uncover stuff that we had no idea about. And that was the thing with Carl Phillips. Like during the interview, I find out that he used to live in Bluffton. I was like, huh? When?
Yeah, so he went through the academies. I read about that.
Yeah, he was at Prep for a couple years. I was like, wow, that's I had no clue. And that was the other thing. Like Brian Campbell was the other player that we were like, wait, he lives in Bluffton? Where?
And he's been there for 2.5 years, just chilling out in Colleton River.
We had no idea.
The folks there know it, obviously, but he's clearly a pretty low-key guy. He's not out bragging around town or anything. But he has had a good run as well. So no, it's cool to know we have some local connections out there. Shout out to Captain Toby. I still call him that, even though he's not captain anymore. Last report, he was working for Live Golf. I don't know if he still is, but I would have seen him this week, I'm sure, if I was out there. But yeah, Max, to that point, you did get a question in the post-game presser,
Yes.
and Kevin Libby wants to see it. So let's
I hope
let's
this
watch
video
it.
works because I struggle.
Yeah,
with
Max
this a lot.
Raj, LowcoSports. Wanted to ask, as you came into the final round, did you think you had an idea of how those greens were moving with the ball and across the green and stuff like that?
A little bit. I mean, it was so fun playing this place like this. Obviously, this isn't normal circumstances of them, at least to my understanding, kind of tearing them up. I don't know if it's tomorrow or soon, but they could let the greens go. It just was so hard to get the ball close to the hole. I kind of was talking to my dad last night about that. It's, I played well yesterday. I just kept having numbers and clubs or angles that a really good shot was 20, 25 feet, or it was a club that I, maybe couldn't quite get to the hole, but the other one wasn't going to have enough spin to stop near the hole, and it was going to go past. And when you get at places like this, it really is just about being patient and kind of picking the spots when you have them. So I felt like, we had a good idea of how the course was playing, and it was almost kind of like hitting a tee shot, getting out there, assessing, okay, this is a pin we can go after, this is a pin we can't, and then just being, aggressive to those conservative targets, if you will.
All right, let's go back.
Okay, I'm just going to say your question was not bad. It was fine. His answer was light years better than the question. He really rewarded you.
Yeah,
what a professional. What a professional on the microphone. You gave him a fine question to work with. He gave you a tremendous answer.
Yeah, he gave me a great answer.
So,
I kind of was like,
I would
that was
say
the
you
first
kind
thing
of left that a little closed. He could have just said, yeah, I felt like I had a good feel for it, and left it at that. But no, JT's a pro. He gave you everything and more as far as his insight going into the round. And I didn't know, so I hadn't been following along with that. But they're tearing up the green. They're putting in new greens, so that's why they could let them get baked and let them go. So yeah, that made for. If that wasn't the situation, we might have had some record scores this week because it was hard to score after Thursday.
Yeah. I will say during his speech, he said he said, please don't change the course. Whatever you do, please don't change it. And I don't disagree with him on it. I think the way the course played this week, it was absolutely fantastic. It was a huge challenge to some of the golfers, especially big names. I mean, like he said, the greens were really hard to read at times, because of how fast they were moving, how firm those greens were, especially in the afternoon. The funniest thing is, I saw a lot of times this week where they thought they had a putt going the right direction, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just makes a turn, and you're like, "Where did that come?" And they look at it like, "Where did that come from?" Like, how did the ball get to there?
Right.
And
especially those approach shots. I mean, like you said, it was just so hard to keep it close to the hole.
I actually think like approach shots weren't from most of the golfers. They weren't terrible this week. I think obviously they could have been better, but again, like the fairways and the greens were just really firm going into the afternoon.
The greens
as we
were
went
awfully
later
firm.
to the weekend, it got even more firm and more.
Well, and they wouldn't have gotten like that if we had gotten some rain, during the tournament. But they would have played more like Thursday if we had gotten a little shower. But there was nothing to keep them from drying out. I found some information on the renovation. So they're going to close on May 5th, so 2 weeks, and reopen in 6 months. They are going to restore it to ensure championship level conditions while preserving classic shot values and design. They're going to make some improvements to agronomy and maintenance of the course, rebuilding all greens, bunkers, and bulkheads. The different turfs currently in use will remain. That's Tiff Eagle on the greens, Celebration Bermuda on the fairways, tees, and rough. And then they already started replacing railroad ties on some of the bulkheads. Davis Love III's company is serving as the consultant on it. He's done a lot of work on various courses at Sea Pines, including designing Atlantic Dunes. Makes sense, 5-time champ. So solid. So I guess they're I guess they're putting in new greens, but same turf. They're just replacing the greens. So yeah, that was good, Max. Said your name and affiliate. Good job, buddy.
Cool. Yeah.
Sounded very
I think
professional on the
I could have
microphone.
asked a better
Yes, indeed.
question, but that was like the first thing that came to my mind because
Yeah,
that was
well,
really
and your brain goes, it just switches off sometimes. You start,
well, I mean,
hey man,
but that was like the first,
like really cool, dude, job, man. Like you won it, awesome. How's that feel? You know, like you didn't go like total boom goes the dynamite.
No, but
just
I honestly, because I think the question I had all week was how are those greens playing?
yeah.
You know, because
Well, and
I
again,
didn't.
look, one of the things that I try to impress upon kids who are new to the game here is that at the end of the day, most people are not going to hear your question. They're going to hear the answer. And it is the answer that you are seeking. Your question is unimportant in the grand scheme of things, as long as
Right.
it elicits the answer that you are seeking. And so, a lot of times kids start trying to make a list of questions before they do an interview. And I'm like, no, don't do that. It doesn't
No,
work.
that was just the first
Topics,
thing that came to my
topics, not
mind.
questions.
I mean,
No,
it was
you
really,
did fine. I'm just
yeah,
saying, like on a bigger picture, like your question was fine. It was great because it elicited a great response. And
yeah,
so at the end of the day, it was useful. And
right,
that's what matters the most.
Yeah.
So you
yeah,
know, you pointed him in the right direction. I'm sure, you know, if we wanted to nitpick you, we could be like how they roll across the green or whatever, you know, like how you said it or whatever. But who gives a damn? If you've been in enough of these things, you've heard a bunch of brilliant sports columnists ramble through questions that turn into stories with a little question at the end, and then it's because they're like writing it in their head, and they, you know, like so.
And it
My
comes
point is
out
just
fun.
that the question isn't necessarily that important. It's what comes from it. And so,
Right.
yeah.
good job. You got a great answer. A bunch of people use some of that quote in their stories. Like guaranteed, they use some of
Right.
that quote in their stories because
Yeah.
there's good stuff in there. So good job.
You know,
Yeah, boom goes the
I will
dynamite.
say the one thing I was able to do this week, which I really actually did enjoy doing every morning, from Friday through Sunday, was doing a Mad Max Loco recap, and
Yeah,
just giving my thoughts on, you know, what went down yesterday, what could happen today, you know, my thoughts on what could happen today. And I really enjoyed doing it. This was really great. I look forward to many more of these because you know, I've gone many times as a spectator, but never as a media personnel. And
right.
It
I
hits
just enjoyed.
differently.
Right.
I enjoyed it, and the
It
best part was
hits
getting
differently.
to watch up close, closer than some spectators do, is how a golfer's mind works. You know, and how they process going through a course at each hole, and you know their thought process each and every time, and it's just a really cool experience to be up close to the golfers and
It
understand what
is.
they're doing and how they do it. So,
It
yeah,
is. It is very, very cool. It is something that I don't take for granted, that I've had the opportunity a number of times to cover this event with the access that we get. And again, that's a shout out to a lot of people. I mean, but starting with Steve and Angela, and the relationship that we've had since I was at the Packet. And there were a lot of folks at the Packet who built that relationship before I got there. So that's what I mean by a credit to a lot of people for just the relationship that we have, as a media, you know,
Right.
collective, with this event. It's not every PGA Tour event that grants the kind of access that they do for small timers like us. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not a big deal. The PGA Tour does not need us to show up and cover their event at all. And they still allow us. I mean, they allowed us 3 credentials, this year, which is a
Very,
tremendous
very
thing,
generous.
tremendous
Yep.
blessing, and we're very grateful for that opportunity, and we
Yep.
don't take it lightly. So,
Absolutely.
thanks to all of them, and
Yeah.
yeah, living the dream, and yeah, helping others live the dream as well. I remember what it felt like to get to do it for the first time, and I want others to experience that. I was trying to find one of the silliest questions that I've ever heard, on this ASAP Sports. Yeah, I can't find it, but someone once asked Jim Furyk a question that the gist of which And Sam McDowell and I just died laughing in the media center. The gist of it was, so I mean, some of these guys out here are really good. Like Heath Slocum's nickname's Laser. Do you have a nickname? That was the gist of the question. So what I'm saying is your question could have been so much worse. It's so much worse. I've heard some really bad ones, but I was trying to find the actual quote of that one. There was also one where someone asked Brant Snedeker after he had. So you remember when Snedeker was like in the mix at the Masters and then he didn't win and he like broke down and cried and stuff. And there was a journalist. Yeah, there was a journalist who asked him about that and said the first thing I could think of was Brett Favre. That was the question. And Snedeker was like, no, I wasn't thinking about Brett Favre. Brett Favre had famously cried in a press conference like somewhat recently at that time, but it was like,
Wow.
Anyway, there have been many, many, many very, very dumb questions asked in almost every press conference ever. So never be ashamed of your question. There's always been a worse one, I promise.
I remember you telling that story about Furyk. I think it was around this time last year. We were doing a show and you brought that out. And I didn't even think of it until I heard the punchline or the end of it. I'm like, oh, I remember hearing about that.
Man, it was so good.
Oh God.
It was so
Do
good.
you have a nickname?
Do you have a nickname? Heath Slocum's nickname's Laser. It was so funny.
Oh my
See,
goodness.
I have searched for this before. Heritage, Laser, ASAP Sports.
That's just like, so how's your dog doing? Like some stupid question like that or something like that. Just like
There have been.
I mean-
I remember just. There were some weird ones I remember just the past few years about just things that were not as
it's good.
online
Okay.
with what you would expect, and some like pop culture kind of things. If it's like,
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, once we got to ask Ian Poulter, about his haunted house he was staying in at Harbour Town. He's still convinced. Carlo actually asked him about it recently, and he said, I hope they burn that place down. But yeah, Poulter one year at the Heritage was certain that the house he was staying in Sea Pines was haunted, to the point that, I mean, he was telling everybody about it, and he swears that he still swears by it many, many years later. So I don't know where that house is, but there's a haunted house, and either there's a haunted house in Sea Pines or somebody played a really good prank on Ian Poulter.
I would say there are a few houses in Sea Pines that could definitely be haunted if
it wouldn't surprise me either.
As a haunted house, there's a few houses in Sea Pines that I bet would be considered as haunted. So that doesn't shock me, but what shocks me is that he was talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he was telling everybody about it. That one, I can't think of her name. She was like a big golf blogger at the time. She was there and she picked up on it from his Twitter, and then it became a thing. And I think I asked him about it at a future tournament. Like, are you, where you staying this year? Is it haunted this year? And he was like, no, I'm not staying in that place. Like he's about it. He's about it.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't find the laser quote. But yeah, it was a good tournament. It was a great tournament. It was a fun final round. I kind of like it when it's like it was today, where there's a period where it looks like it's going to be a shootout and anybody can win it, and then it becomes a 2-horse race down the stretch.
Yeah.
Well, I think everyone else just kind of faded in stretches, and the other two stayed
But I like
consistent.
that.
Yeah,
I like it when there's a bunch of guys and then they start to just kind of peel off one by one, and then you got a 2-horse race.
There was a point where we had 4 guys tied for first at 14.
Yep, early in the day. Yes.
Like, I was like, holy crap, this is going to be interesting going down the backstretch. And like, I mean, we've said this about the Masters before, and we'll say it about the Heritage this week, is it really doesn't start until you get to the back nine on the final round. I mean, it
Well,
really was, because going into the back nine, it was just
this
unreal.
definitely this year. There have been years where they've
Right.
players have
Yeah,
ran
I
Where it
get
was
away
a
that.
with
But
boat
it.
like
race.
we've said it about the Masters, because every year at the Masters, there's always a possibility that it
Yeah,
really is going to be
that's an
going
old Dan Jenkins line. Doesn't
right.
start till the
But
back nine on
I,
Sunday.
I would say this week, I mean, it really, I mean, it really like looked like anyone had a shot. I mean, and the funniest thing was there was a point where I was like, Scotty Scheffler's starting to move closer, and then of course he fell apart on that one
Yeah, he
hole.
just couldn't quite get
Yeah.
it going this week. He was
And
right there all week.
Brian Harmon, I mean, Brian Harmon at one point
Yeah.
was one shot back of the lead, and I was like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I called for
Yep.
him to potentially win today. Like, and when he got to a shot back, I was like, oh boy, this should
And
get
then Berger
interesting.
came charging out of
Burger
nowhere.
came
And
charging.
Berger came
Cantlay was
charging. I
kind
was
of,
like,
you
where are
know,
all these guys coming from? I mean,
yeah.
what? My goodness, it was like at one
Well,
point it was like
I will
anyone's
say
game.
that I think a lot of us picked like a 18, 19 under score and ended up being a 17 under for a playoff.
Right.
It was a lot to,
Yeah, I thought it was going
Right.
to take 19 to win. I really did.
Yeah,
Heathcliff Slocum was a closer for Mariners, Sox, Phils, Cubs, many teams, but Heath Slocum, no B, golfer,
oh wow,
born,
interesting.
played
That's
on the
right.
same high school golf team as Boo Weekley, and then
Mhm.
Bubba Watson also
Oh, wow.
played on that same team in Milton, Florida.
Crazy.
It's a crazy,
Good
That
crazy,
is,
crazy thing.
Yep.
man, that's a program and a half. Good
Yeah.
lord.
Yeah, yeah,
Coming
they're
out of
pretty
that
solid.
place. Jeez.
And Heath, they called him Laser, so. Heath did not remember that his nickname was
But I
Laser,
mean,
but it was printed somewhere at some point. So nickname was
I-
Laser. So that
I
got
mean,
latched
I would
onto.
say this for my first Heritage as a media personnel, I couldn't have asked for a better Heritage to
Well,
cover.
Yeah, you got a
I'll
great
tell you what, the first one I
honestly.
covered, I wasn't even able to go because it was nobody was able to go.
The
except
COVID.
2020.
Yeah.
The COVID year.
Yeah.
I went.
Yeah.
I'll just say this: I went anyway, and I sat behind in a yard behind one of the condos that sits along the golf course, and just
Nice.
watched as the golfers
Yeah,
came
that's
by.
cool.
Yeah, those were the
I
only
mean,
people who got to see it.
yeah,
was-
right, exactly. And I
That
was
was a
like,
weird year.
I was, you know what? The funniest thing though was it was just a bunch of guys playing golf with no one around them. It was just like
Right.
it wasn't even
It was
a
kind of
tournament. It was just
kind of calm and comforting, like like
yeah.
just those first couple of weeks back, and even just like other sports, like with the empty
funniest thing
arenas,
that you would
and,
think-
like the empty baseball stadiums. Like it was just a
Oh.
level of it was just it was bizarre, but it was also
I mean, here's the thing
It
though.
was
They tried
strange.
to interject. I mean, at baseball stadiums, they were interjecting sound from the speakers of
Right.
fans cheering and
It
stuff
was
like
just
that.
so quiet
With
out there.
golf,
Right?
Weird.
With golf, there was none of that. It was just a
But
quiet.
that's the natural environment
right.
for golf.
Yeah, that's
too.
why it worked so
So-
well with golf. That's why golf was the first
Right.
sport to return, just because of how well
The
it,
logistics
it's
weren't nearly
naturally
the
a
issue.
game where it's you're playing like at its core, golf is a game where you're playing with maybe like one or two or three other people, and
Right.
it's just you enjoying the
And you don't see
natural
anyone
beauty of the
else.
course
Yeah.
and the competitive nature as well. But just
Great way to
that's
do
what golf is to its core.
Yeah.
But
I played
It-
2 really good rounds of mini golf this weekend. I shot even par
Yeah.
once and 2 under once on 2
Hey.
different
There you
courses.
go.
2 under
All
at Congo
right.
River
All
Golf, par
Hey.
46. That was a solid outing.
Ooh, not bad. Pretty
Yeah.
good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like I couldn't have asked for a better first
Yeah, it
Heritage
was- it
to
was
cover.
great.
It was just what a week it was. I mean, the weather was great. The golf was fantastic. And really just one of the better Heritage tournaments over the last several years. Not only because of the weather, but just because of the field we
The
had this year,
competition
as
broadly,
well
you know,
as the
yeah.
as well as the competition itself was just absolutely fantastic to watch. And
Yep.
I look forward to a
Can't
lot
beat it.
more of these. I look forward to hopefully seeing the RBC Heritage continue to be a signature event, because I think when it's a signature event,
Mhm.
it always makes it a lot more exciting. But I would say this regarding the Heritage Classic Foundation and what the RBC Heritage does, not only for the Hilton Head community, but also what it does for the state of South Carolina too.
Mhm.
The amount of money it brings into the
Oh, yeah.
state's economy is absolutely fantastic, and I think it's always a huge opportunity to have that.
And then the scholarships for
Yes,
the
the
next
scholarships,
generation.
dude,
Yep.
is always a big deal
Yep.
as well. So I mean, it's a great thing to
Yeah.
have.
Yep.
I will say, of course they had the couple tournaments out in Ridgeland at one point during that COVID time.
Mhm.
Congaree, yeah.
Yeah,
Congaree to
Congaree,
prove,
which
yep.
by the way, what a beautiful course that is.
Mhm.
It is. I was
Yeah,
able to cover the
absolutely.
first one for
I wish.
Yeah, the
WHHI.
Palmetto, yes.
I hate saying I hate the fact that they don't have a tournament going on there right now. I would love to see a tournament come
Yeah,
Yeah,
back.
there'll
we had
be
a
more
couple
events
we had a
there.
couple
I hope
one-offs.
so. I really do hope so.
Yep.
But I think the Heritage, with what it's done for 57 years,
Oh,
is
yeah.
really
Phenomenal.
something
Well,
special.
Yeah,
And
my understanding of the goals for Congaree, so to speak, their objectives is they want to hold a big time like international type event.
yeah.
Um,
If
they
it's
want
like
to
a
hold
President's
either a
Cup kinda
President's
thing,
Cup or
yeah,
something like that. Maybe a Soul
or
Hunt
even like a
Cup. You know,
college,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I
that's the
will
kind of
say,
thing that
Yep.
they're trying to have those kinds of conversations. They're trying to have
I would,
U.S. Open type conversations,
yeah,
which they're a long way
I was
from
about
that.
to
They need
say.
a lot
Yep.
of
Yeah.
Yeah,
infrastructure to
yeah,
Yeah,
get there. But
longer
that's
to
why
I
go.
was about to say, I
that's
feel
why
like
they
But
got in line for those two,
yeah,
sort of
but
I
smaller
would,
events
yeah,
I
I
was
mean,
to
you have
gonna
to
work out
start
say, yeah,
small. You
logistics.
you have to prove that you're, of course, capable of hosting a big time event like that.
Hmm.
So I
right.
think there's
Well,
still
I was
some
gonna
more
say,
work to be
They've got
done to
big
get
hitters
that US Open.
involved. They could do some
yeah,
development
they do.
around there.
Yep.
I was gonna
They
say
need more
regarding,
hotels and
what Justin had just said, I feel like the ultimate goal for Congaree, once they get the infrastructure there, would to host a tournament like the PGA Championship or
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
US Open or
that's
something like that.
One
I
of the
feel like that's
rotating
the
majors
ultimate
or one
goal.
of the rotating international
Right.
events, I
yep.
think, are the things that they're
And
really looking for long
because of
term. That
course,
may be 30 years down the road
Right,
for
that may
all
be a
I
while
know,
from now, but
but
just
that's long
because
term.
it's a fairly new course too. It has not been around for that long.
no.
No, and
Yeah.
there's a
So
as this area continues to grow out in that direction, it's going to make more sense for there to be like resort style development there, and that's what it's going to take. I mean, they're going to have to be able to house a ton of people fairly nearby, because right now hotels, or there's not enough hotels within an hour radius to even
I mean
consider
that's
hosting
part
that
of
kind of event
how,
there.
yeah.
They're going to have to
If
have
you
more
want to,
parking. They're going to have more of everything.
Yep.
But the golf course itself, the layout, the
It's
openness,
challenging.
it really does suit itself to that kind of event,
Yeah.
and
right.
that's what they're looking for long term.
And I
And
think
when I
it
say
like,
again long term, how long that term is depends on a lot of things.
Yeah.
well, I mean,
That's what they're looking for.
you look at say Kiwa Island for
Right.
instance. I mean, of
Right.
course they've hosted
Great
majors
example.
before,
Of course. Yeah.
and they
It
have
was
the
once like the
infrastructure.
ends of the earth, and now it's
Yeah,
like it's developed up around it, and now you
yes,
can
it
hold those
has.
kind of events
And
there.
that's like it's a great example, and I feel like that for Congaree, it would be a great
Hmm.
example to look at as for what the foreseeable
Oh,
future could look like for
I'm
Congaree.
certain they are.
Yeah,
They're actually in a little better situation than Congaree or than Kiowa as far as accessibility goes. Like Kiowa's
right.
hard to
Wow.
get to,
Yeah, it's
and it's
one
a
way
real
in and
hassle
one way
Yeah.
getting
out.
on and off whenever they do
Yeah.
that. I mean, Congaree is a
You
stone's
just need a
throw
little bit
from
more,
95.
yeah, like buildings, infrastructure, just a lot,
Yeah,
just maybe a district which has just
right.
shops and stuff. You need more
Yeah.
surrounding it.
Yep, and that'll take time, but
Yeah.
I think it's coming. I think that's part of their long-term plan, is to try to build up stuff around there where they can have the infrastructure to hold bigger events. So I think that's definitely coming. But it's a cool place, and there are other. I don't know that we'll get any other tour events, but there's other good golf being played in South Carolina all over the place.
By
Like
the way,
we don't keep tabs on local golf the way we once did back in the day at the Packet, but man, there's all summer long, there's going to be some big time events being played in this area.
we have some big golf news that just came across today.
What's that?
USCB Sand Sharks, the men's golf team, Peach Belt champions.
Really?
Yes.
Let's
Yes.
go.
Yeah,
Coach Corey and the boys.
I believe 2 golfers both took individual titles.
Yes,
'Cause
that
if
is
I'm not
correct.
mistaken, they
Both the
tied.
men's and the ladies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, both men's and ladies had individual titles
Indeed.
this week as well.
Yep.
So
Nice. Tell us
what a
about it,
great
Wes.
week for USCB in terms of golf and the golf program and how it's grown over the last few years or so.
Yes. So Eric Rengor with the individual title for the men, and then
Speed.
McLean Neal, who was on that viral video last year, won the women's title.
That's awesome.
Great stuff.
That's fantastic. McLean is just aces. I love her.
Yeah.
She's been on the
Awesome.
show a couple of times.
Yep.
She's amazing. Rengart, a freshman out of Sweden. So that's tremendous. And McLean, a junior. So they'll both be back next year.
Fantastic.
And Rengart, freshman of the year, obviously. And then he comes in.
And that's the first Peach Belt title, correct?
Sure is.
Yeah.
Sure is. That would be first Peach Belt Conference championship and should set them up very well for the NCAAs, I would think. I don't know what D2 NCAA golf.
Well, they're now eligible until next year, correct?
Oh, you're right. Gosh dang it. That stinks.
Yeah.
That stinks. But they won. Yeah, that was their national championship then.
Yeah, they get to go out on top.
That's amazing.
Yep.
2 scoops, Rengart and McLean.
Yep.
Awesome.
Very
All right,
nice.
boys. Well, that should bring us near to the end here. We'll shout out some sponsors. We got Hudson Seafood House on the docks. Great place for seafood sunsets and cocktails on Hilton Head Island. And now that the Heritage folks have gone, you should be able to go check it out this week. Just, probably not over the weekend. The people will be coming, the tourists. But, weeknight, you should be able to get out and enjoy the sunset and have a po' boy Andrew's Way at Hudson Seafood House on the docks, also the presenting sponsor of Under the Bus. And then we've got Hilton Head Furniture, one of our newest sponsors. They've got great handcrafted furniture built up in Hickory, North Carolina, and brought down here to the Low Country to sell to you so you can keep it in your house for a long time. Hilton Head Furniture. Then we got our friend Richard Barron, the coach from Hilton Head Prep, now in the window business. HHI Windows and Doors. If you want to improve your view of the Low Country, get in touch with them. HHI Windows and Doors. We got Base Hit Life, baseball and softball themed apparel. Live your best Base Hit Life at basehitlife.com. Dr. Ambrose Cole, official chiropractor. Find him at Rooted Living Wellness in Bluffton, and he'll get you feeling right, mind, body, and spirit. Reverence Wrestling Club, official wrestling sponsor and presenting sponsor of the Loco Grind. Barefoot Floor Care of the Low Country, getting your floors so clean your feet will thank you. And Jay's Barbershop, the place to be in Ridgeland, whether you need a haircut or not. All right, boys. Parting thoughts, and maybe we've talked a lot of Heritage, so maybe let's talk about what we're looking forward to this week with spring break out of the way. We've got a big week ahead.
A lot of baseball coming up. A lot of
high school sports
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pumped for this week of baseball. I mean, this is for most sports. This is the last week for the playoffs. And actually, we have lacrosse playoffs starting up. So let me take a look and see where those. I think we mentioned the brackets earlier, but lacrosse playoffs are starting. I believe on Tuesday. If that's correct.
I've got Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. So
girls live
starts
starts Tuesday.
Wednesday we got
Wednesday.
Hilton Head hosting Gilbert's, May River hosting Fox Creek. Those are those are boys games. And then
girls are on Tuesday.
Yeah, for girls lacrosse, we have girls are on Tuesday, and we got May River hosting Aiken. Beaufort traveling to Bishop England, Bluffton hosting Academic Magnet, and then Fountain Inn at Hilton Head. So a lot of playoff lacrosse going up at home on Tuesday, and Bluffton, Hilton Head's the Hilton Head I think they have a pretty good path to have a chance at getting to the semifinals. If they win that one, they'll get Philip Simmons, and they'll host it. They'll host the second round. They're the 3 seed. Philip Simmons the 4. So that'll be on Friday.
Bishop England, which is
yes, as I would say, Bishop England has been the thorn in their side the last few years. So we'll see if anything changes. But
either Hilton Head or May River boys.
May River's on the other side of the bracket. May River's on the other side of the bracket.
Boys have a good bracket. Hilton Head boys are the 2 seed.
Yeah. So
gotta go
going
through
back to that
Flora,
one,
though.
Hilton Head, so they get the 2 seed, and they have they get Gilbert, and we could have Hilton Head May River in round 2 coming up on Saturday.
Yep. And then they'd have to go through Flora or Christchurch, basically the upper state champ in the semis, which is interesting. And then it would likely be Oceanside waiting on the other side.
Ooh.
Yep. There you go. All right. So playoff lacrosse is upon us. Marcus Walsh, you got any parting thoughts? Libby wants to know about Easter traditions. I don't really have any.
Well, made some new memories
What's your favorite Easter dinner?
today with
Eggs
Sam's
Benedict
family.
is
I was at
kinda
Margaritaville for much of the afternoon after
Nice.
taking care of some
Wasting
stuff
away?
here. Wasting
Again?
away poolside with the flat screen, watching the Heritage. Had a great
Nice.
ham and lamb and potato and corn casserole and desserts and drinks and whole brigade of food and libations. There were 12 of us,
Nice.
so it was great.
Cool.
Did you,
My mom and dad and family were heading back to their respective places. My sister back to Belgium, my brother and nephew and sister-in-law back to New Hampshire, my mom and dad back down here from Ocala. Again, congrats to Dartmouth, the winners of the equestrian tournament and the
nice.
the National Equestrian Association, not the NCAA, but the NCEA.
Also, congrats to Binghamton for winning the national debate competition. They beat Kansas in the finals.
Oh, wow.
Thank God.
Really?
Go
There you
Binghamton.
Yeah.
Tony Kornheiser's alma mater. That's why I know that.
Yeah, there
He
you
was
go.
on the show.
I was going to ask you, Marcus,
Yeah.
real quick. Did while you're in Margaritaville, did you find your lost shaker of salt?
I did not, because I
Jimmy
didn't
Love
need
never
one.
find it. That's
Some
the question.
people say that it's the Funky Bunch to blame, but we all know it's Marky Mark's own damn fault.
Oh yeah,
Oh, man.
no doubt about that. No doubt about
man.
that.
All right,
Sorry,
boys.
I had to ask the question.
Max, any
on
more
that
parting
note-
thoughts about just your first you mentioned a bit, but just your favorite guy you follow, your favorite memory,
That's
Or
a
your
great question.
favorite
specifically-
food from the media
Yeah.
center, whatever.
or just
Ooh.
any specific memory that
Favorite
you have
food,
that
ooh.
yeah.
I miss the food in the media center.
The food was great, by the way.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yep.
I can't be more happy with Angela, and the rest of her staff with how they treated us, the hospitality they showed us. It was great. Getting to be on the course and walking with the golfers and being able to, watch them from a different point of view this week and being able to understand what they go through in the morning, being able to understand how they, their thought process as they're going through a course. It was a great experience. I look forward to many more of them. And hopefully in terms of my interviewing skills, I continue to improve and be able to do this without,
just like anything else, just need reps.
Need
reps.
I mean, honestly, like I said, I couldn't be more happy for my first Heritage to be the Heritage we had this year, and how the tournament went. Not only with the way the players played, but the weather, which was some of the best weather we've had at a Heritage in several years.
Ever.
And so
truly.
I'm extremely thankful for what I got to do this week, and the part I played, not only for being a part of the media personnel, but also being able to support the local talent as well. That was all there, because it wasn't just us, of course. It was BCTV, Chloe G and Matt Golden were there this week. They were there to cover stuff, and I was so excited
I miss
to
seeing
see
all my buddies.
Matt show up.
It's like a reunion every year.
Yeah, to see Matt and them show up, as well as the crews from Savannah, which I know some of them from being with them when covering football this fall and stuff like that. And so I was really...
I have to shout out Bob Stevens, Lisa Richardson, Jeremy Pope, Maria Soden. Jessa Jeremiah was probably out there doing some stuff. There were a bunch of our folks out there. I saw Susan Green the other day.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. WHHI was out there and threw arms too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I,
JJ, you must have missed it, but there are a couple of interesting people I met around the course. I just ran into around the course. One of them was Jeremy Pope, who I got to talk to. But there are others around, including Hayden Gregory, the Bluffton High football
Oh
coach,
yeah.
who was hanging around. And then the best interaction of the weekend was several Patrick Henry boys who just came up to me and
Oh
recognized
yeah.
me. Yeah. Yeah.
The Patrick Henry boys was out
Yep.
there, huh? How about that?
Yep.
I love it.
but it was
Yes,
a
they
great
did, Kev.
experience. It was such a great experience. I was so thankful and so um I was just so thankful that I was given the opportunity to do it this week. I really I didn't know if I was ready for it, but I think I learned a lot from this
Yeah.
week and weekend, and I think next year I'm going to come back and have a little more confidence and what I'm doing, not
Yeah.
only on the course but off the course in the media tent as well when it comes
I'll
to
tell you,
interviews.
I would not have had the confidence to ask a press conference question my first year. So
No way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I might have asked a couple, but they were probably dicey, and they were probably like, because there were
but
only two other people in the room for that guy or something.
but
I was always
my
more comfortable
yeah.
asking them in the scrum outside the scoring tent than I was in the presser. That always made me nervous.
I
When they hand
the
you a microphone, I'm like, I used to be. I'm not anymore.
Yeah. So I was very happy, and I can't be more thankful to have taken part in covering the RBC Heritage this week, not only for uh, for myself getting to learn it, but also getting to cover it for LowcoSports and
Yeah,
being
man.
able to continue working with you guys and stuff like
It was
that.
pretty cool to not be there, but know that you boys had it covered. I enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yeah,
I
you guys
need to
did
be
a
able
heck
to
of
do
a
more
job.
of that. Like I need to be, I need
But
to
I
live
would
my
love
real
to
life
see you.
sometimes.
I
Um,
can't wait to see you there next year.
yeah,
Yeah,
To
it'll be, it'll be awesome to have a full house.
experience it with
The
you next year.
entire LowcoSports group potentially there next
heck yeah,
next year to take it in.
yeah.
Yeah.
My
Hope so.
other parting thoughts. Of course, I am continuing. Of course, because I forgot that this week that I'm actually a high school baseball coach. Believe it or not.
Right.
And we got a big game this week against Whale Branch. I'm very
Yeah.
excited for that game. I have a feeling we have a very good chance of making that a very competitive game.
Should be a competitive game.
Yeah, and I'm also excited because not far from now, Hardyville is going to be playing their first home playoff game and first playoff game as a
Yes.
whole in 15 years. So
Yeah,
I'm
baby.
very excited for that.
Fantastic.
And so I'm extremely excited for that. So I can't wait for any of the guys that are watching tonight. If you are watching tonight,
I'm pumped for spring playoffs. It's
oh,
it's
Heck
dude,
yeah.
me too.
yeah.
But I'd love to say
And we still
for
got
my,
another round of Region
Regular
6
season,
4A.
yeah, we got baseball.
Yeah.
Speaking
I
of which,
know.
big game tomorrow at the Den, Beaufort against Bluffton, which should be a
Mm-hmm.
potential Donnybrook on the baseball field tomorrow
Yeah,
night.
I'm intrigued by that one. I was gonna say to my fellows, my team, I'm so proud of them for the work they've put in this year, and I cannot wait to have a playoff game with them, whether we
Yeah, man.
lose or win. The experience is what really matters.
Well, and we likely get two, because we'll be the
Right,
2
it's
seed.
double
So
elimination, so you
even
might
if we lose the first one, it'll
get
likely be
another
against
one.
the
Yeah,
4 seed
right.
from the
So
other.
I'm excited for it. I'm
Although the
excited.
1A bracket's a little different. It goes
I'm
like,
excited
So
for my boys
so we
to.
should get
my
2
team-
home games either
Yeah,
way.
I'm
most
excited for
likely.
my team, my boys to experience what playing playoffs at the
Same.
high school level is because, of course, myself and Eamon, we both know what it's like to play high school baseball playoffs during our days of playing. So
Yeah.
we want these boys who
I'm
I think
hyped.
most of them have never seen a high school baseball playoff game before, especially some
Probably
of my
true.
more experienced players.
Green.
I don't think they've
Yeah.
ever seen it before. So I'm very
There's a
excited to
couple who
have.
might have, but
I
yeah,
think there's
same
a
for.
couple.
I
Yeah,
don't think
but
any of our girls had ever seen a softball game before
right.
they played in one, except for the few
So
who played 4 games last year.
I'm really
But
happy about it, and
we
I
got 3
can't be
this
more
week on
proud.
spring break.
Yeah, I'm really happy about it, and I can't be more proud of my team and
Same.
what me and Coach Collins have done to build this, start to build this program, and try to build it from the ground up and continue to build it and stuff like that. But
Yeah, we coming,
the
baby.
other,
We coming.
yeah, the other parting thought I had, and I don't know if we actually mentioned it this week or not. It's outside of the LowcoSports area, but it is gaining. It had national attention this week. which is, of course, Nico Imavala is, of course, no longer with the Tennessee Volunteers. He is now with the UCLA Bruins.
Is that official? Because
it
just came official
it was
today,
broken, and then they said it's not official.
I saw something that said it was official.
It is official. It was made official today. In fact, I think earlier this morning, it was made official. He is transferring to UCLA. So, good luck. I don't know what else.
Maybe you can take another look at the
If I'm being honest regarding this situation, I find it incredibly stupid. And this is one of the things I don't like about the NIL thing, is that it makes players want money. I'm like, you know what? You need to earn the money. Like, honestly, I don't get the point of the NIL, because the point of earning money was when you get to the National Football League, you know you've made it, and that's where you start getting paid, is when you become a professional, not when you're a college athlete. You know,
You said it best earlier in the week, JJ. Nobody's bigger than the team. Nobody's bigger than the institution.
Nobody's bigger than the program.
Nobody's bigger than the program. And this kid tried to make himself bigger than Tennessee.
Right.
And it didn't work.
Here's the deal.
Quarterback coming in, but I don't know.
Look, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what conversations were had and all that
$4 million more dollars
but
than he was.
Here's what I'll say. Respect to Tennessee. Respect to Tennessee and Josh Heupel for saying, nah, we're not doing this. We're not going to do this. You're not going to hold us hostage. You're not bigger. You know, like, this is just a horrible precedent for us to set ahead of the season to let you hold us hostage for more money. Like, so they just said, nah, man, go on. And more power to you, UCLA. But if you think he ain't going to do the same thing to you next year, if he doesn't get the money he wants, then you're wrong. So
I think it also teaches
maybe blame the agent, not the kid. I don't know. I don't know what conversations were had between the agent and the kid.
And the fact that
kids have agents is bananas.
Yeah. You know, I just think, you know, with what Tennessee did and their coaching staff, and of course the school itself with this situation with Nico, I think it showed that, hey, not everything's going to come to you easily. You know, like you don't get everything you want to have. Yep. You know, how do I put it? It's hard to explain. Like
well, they're gonna have to put some limitations on some of this.
You aren't gonna get everything you want. You know, like you got to earn it.
You know, this is a great discussion. This is a great discussion for another day. But
it is. Let's wrap this
we
one
are
up.
well past an hour, and I have to finish up an article, and I have to get ready to get back to work tomorrow. So
that's right. Amen, Wes. Let's bring it in for a landing. We will chat another night, tomorrow night, in fact, on the LowcoSports Lowdown. Nobody's bigger than the Power T, not even me.
Yes.
Really for you.
But all right, boys, let's call it a night. Thank you, gentlemen, for holding down the fort this week at the RBC Heritage. It was a great week. Thanks to all the folks who make it happen. We told you how important it is to our communities, and we really appreciate those folks for bringing it to us every year. And congrats to Justin Thomas on his victory. We look forward to heralding him as the defending champ for the next year and seeing if he can run it back next year and be the first repeat champ since Boo Weekley in 07 and 08. My all-time favorite Heritage champ, Boo Weekley. But all right, boys, thanks to all of our sponsors, especially the OGs Mickelson Law Firm. And thanks to all of you for showing up to listen or watch. That's going to do it for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night for another LowcoSports Lowdown. For Wes Kerr, Max Araj, and Marcus Walsh, I'm Justin Jarrett. Till next time, go Loco.
The LowcoSports Lowdown podcast is a production of Loco Media LLC and LowcoSports.com, an independent media outlet providing grassroots local sports coverage in the South Carolina Lowcountry. We are sustained by community support from sponsors and patrons like you. Get in the game with a monthly pledge of $1 or more at patreon.com/LowcoSports to keep us going and growing. Go Loco.